Okay, here we go. Shit. Chapter 4. Tampa Bay, Florida. Christine. 5 minutes to... Whoa. Shitty out the gate. Christine. 5 minutes to finish, team. Oh my god. Christine. 5 minutes to finish, team, I told my students. My statement met with a groan. There'd been what someone had called... Oopsie. Boy, we're starting off rough. Groan. There'd been what... Okay, come on. Groan. There'd been what someone had thought was a brilliant idea to call the students teammates, hoping to instill that we were all in this school year together. As far as I could tell, the brilliant idea obviously created during a long bathroom break session hadn't taken off like everyone in the junior high hoped. A sly smile formed behind my highly polished, professional one. On the outside, I was a rather conservative, quiet, and very organized teacher. Most people who knew me would say I had a heart of... Teacher. Most people who knew me would say I had a heart of gold, which I certainly didn't mind hearing or displaying from time to time. Until someone plucked my last nerve, which consisted of every man I'd dated, a good number of the older teachers at the school, and almost every student at Carver High. While I could smile and act as if I could never have evil thoughts, behind my shimmering eyes was the heart and soul of a warrior. And soul of a warrior. A heart and soul of a warrior. What's up, Angel Petals? Warrior. Some might say an evil one. That's why I dropped a quiz on the fly when my students had all but ignored me the first half of the lesson. They'd obviously need to learn the hard way. Okay, hold on. What's up, Kristen? Half of the lesson. They'd obviously need to learn the hard way. I wasn't in the mood to be fucked with. The kids hated when I tossed out popped with an ED, okay? Fucked with. The kids hated when I tossed out pop quizzes, but I'd finally learned after being warned by every teacher, the principal and assistant principal, the guidance counselor, and even the custodial staff that my sweet, straightforward method of teaching wouldn't work with what they'd called blood-sucking creatures from the Black Lagoon. Black Lagoon. Their staunch warnings had come during a welcome to the team cocktail party in my honor. I'd wondered then why the lot of them had been tipsy. Only a few months into the school year, and I knew why. Being the new girl at the time, I'd kept my mouth shut, although I'd been horrified they'd talked about their students that way. How in God's name could they be so horrible? The kids were exactly as described. If only my life held a little excitement, something to look forward to. I debated planning a vacation on my own, but what fun was it exploring new locations all by yourself? One time I tried going out to dinner by myself. One time. The poor waitress had openly avoided me, given I was in tears within 15 minutes. No, it wasn't because I was all that fragile. I'd just come in from an anxiety-ridden doctor's appointment, but the stigma of eating alone had remained. Eating alone? Oh my god, I have to uninstall that. That's so annoying. Uno momento, por favor. Let's do this over here. Apps. Installed apps. This app only gives you trouble when recording. So I get to uninstall it and reinstall it every evening. Yay! Shout out to Razer Gaming. Okay, then we save. Let me close this. And I reopen this. We should be all gravy, baby. What's up, Rain? Welcome. Nice beast. Open. Scroll down. Zoom in. What's up, Ariel?
Appointment. But the stigma of eating alone, it just coming.
Okay.
Given I was.
I have to redo that whole sentence.
I debated from the Black Party in my honor. Cheers from the Black Lagoon.
Cool, okay.
Cheers from the Black Lagoon.
Their staunch warnings had come during a welcome to the team. Fuck, let's say it right. What's up now?
Cheers from the Black Lagoon.
Their staunch warnings had come during a welcome to the team cocktail party given in my honor. I'd wondered then why the lot of them had been tipsy. Only a few months into the school year, and I knew why. Being the new girl at the time, I'd kept my mouth shut, although I'd been horrified they'd talked about their students that way. Nicole, thank you for following.
Students that way. Students that way.
How in God's name could they be so horrible? The kids were exactly as described. If only my life held a little excitement, something to look forward to. I debated planning a vacation on my own, but what fun was it exploring new locations all by yourself? One time I tried going out to dinner by myself. One time. The poor waitress had openly avoided me, given I was in fuck.
Self. One.
What's up, cat?
Self. One time.
What time?
Self. One time.
The poor waitress had openly avoided me, given I was in tears within 15 minutes. No, it wasn't because I was all that fragile. I'd just come from an anxiety-ridden doctor's appointment, but the stigma of eating alone had remained. I knew what my new Tampa friend would tell me to do. Have a one-night stand. Hunger and hunt. Those were her two favorite words, even if Tawny had a boyfriend. Somehow, I didn't think their relationship would last. I also wasn't that kind of naughty girl. But after growing up in a conservative world where even dating was frowned upon, I was ready to break out of the mold. Oops, I got my chat covered up. What's up, Eric? Welcome.
Break out of the mold.
A hand raised in the back of the classroom drew me out of my moment of misery. Yes? Miss Carrington, what if we don't finish? Anthony asked the question using what he thought was a powerful voice. He did so out of a need to intimidate me, hoping to keep his reputation as the campus bad boy intact. I'm going to do that way different. Miss Carrington, what if we don't finish?
Finish. Anthony.
Yeah, this story's fun. This is a good one. This whole series is fantastic.
Powerful voice.
He did so out of a need to intimidate me, hoping to keep his reputation as the campus bad boy intact. While he stood over me by a few inches, very little intimidated me any longer. I'd been through way too much in my life. Then I fail you for the year. That wasn't true, but they didn't know that, at least at this moment. At least a few heads popped up, at least 6 pencils circling answers furiously. Maybe I was in a much more sarcastic mood than I'd originally thought. Perhaps that was due to the fact that a fellow teacher continued to ask me out on a date. Even though I told him no 12 times now, he refused to take no for an answer. I could see I'd need to fudge.
to take no for an answer.
I could see I'd need to use other tactics to drive the arrogant prick from my life. Hockey players don't need to read. The entire room laughed at Anthony's insistence. He did love to be the center of attention. Well, Anthony, you may be right. Hockey players are dumber than boxes of rocks, but at the end of the day, they still need to be able to read their contracts and the plays demanded by the coaches. If you want to be considered for some team, you'll need to graduate from college, which means you'll need to know how to read. I had no idea what I was talking about, as I couldn't stand hockey players and hadn't watched more than 5 minutes of a game in my entire life. But at least Anthony had paid attention to what I'd just said. I'd call that a successful day.
Well, that a successful day.
5 minutes on the clock. Between the dirty looks I continued to receive, the tennis shoes tapping purposely on the scuffled tile floor, and the consistent,
Tile
floor, and the, oh my god, constant, dude.
Tile floor.
And the constant giggles coming from the group of girls in the back, I was on hour 57 of my mind formulating various escape routes. Not just away from the school, but out of the city. Maybe the state. Oh, what the hell? Why not the country? Area, thank you for the follow. Welcome.
Why not the country?
With another stern but controlled glare across the room full of students, I returned my attention to my laptop, hoping to finish grading the last paper before the bell rang. Given the older building, an old-fashioned wall clock remained hanging in homage to the ongoing renovations occurring throughout campus. With the steel hands bent after so many years of abuse, the constant ticking only added to my annoyance. I just entered the grade on the system when the bell rang. After a few additional groans, the students started to gather their things. Come on, mouse, do your thing. Okay. Oh shit, my girlfriend just showed up.
Their things.
Yeah, of course. Welcome, Carmen. Hey, everybody. Carmen, the, I don't know, the most famous narrator on TikTok. Hanging out. First off, Carmen, with that attitude right now, how dare you? How dare you? Speaking of late, we're in the middle of a class session, the bell's ringing. That has something to do with something. I don't know, let's continue. Welcome, though. Glad you're here. Okay, let's see.
Their things.
We're gathering our things, we're losing our spot. Okay. What the fuck? Certainly. There it is.
Their things.
Bring your quizzes up to my desk. I emailed your homework assignments for tonight. Another groan. My mother had always told me what happened when hands were idle. I'd certainly seen that in action with this group. Since this was the last day of the Since this was the last class of the day, the kids took a few seconds before making their way to the front. When every paper was placed on my desk and the kids were walking toward the door, I closed my eyes. Only when I heard the door close and their voices fade did I drop my head into my hands. I'd wanted to be a teacher since I could remember. Well, that was after the phase of eating, sleeping, and drinking ice skating. What? And drinking ice skating, yeah.
Drinking ice skating.
In my heart, I'd known I'd head to the Olympics one day. Then the bottom had been dropped out of my perfect little world and reality had settled in. Dreams didn't really come true. A slight sound brought me from my painful memories, and very slowly I lifted my head. Seeing Anthony lingering at his desk, his eyes scanning the quiz while the two fingers holding the pencil were white-knuckled, drew and kept my shocked attention. Amanda, welcome, and thank you for the follow. I appreciate that.
Detention. Detention.
I started to open my mouth to tell him in no uncertain terms he didn't get an extension on the time limit when a little bird in the back of my... fuck! We'll do it again.
Detention.
I started to open my mouth to tell him in no uncertain terms he didn't get an extension on... Fuck!
Detention.
I started to open my mouth to tell him in no uncertain terms he didn't get an extension on the time limit when a little bird in the back of my head stopped me. Maybe I needed to remind myself why I'd chosen the profession. To help shape the children's minds. I added a whole word.
Chosen the profession.
To help shape children's minds. But more than that, to give them a reason to strive for more than what they had in their lives. Yeah, okay, we did it. Those run-ons bite us all. Yeah. Sometimes I forget to breathe, too. That's my favorite part of the long ones.
Had in their lives.
The children within this school lived in poverty. They didn't start the year off with new clothes and a brand new iPhone, unless the items were stolen. Many fell into a life of crime just to make ends meet for their families. Others did so to be cool and feel accepted. My instinct had told me Anthony was highly intelligent and just required to hide his interest in school with the street bloods. Maybe we had vicious gangs where I'd grown up, but I'd certainly been protected from them. Instead of uttering a word, I sat quietly, moving to another school project I could complete on the laptop. Even though the same clock ticked away, the sound no longer bothered me. Yet, while the minutes passed, I both questioned and answered my mental inquiries. Why did I say it like that?
Hunger bothered me.
Thank you for liking the live, Carmen.
Hunger bothered me.
Great voice. I can't stay but hope to see you on your next live. Well, I appreciate you being here. I will be here probably more than I should.
Food no longer bothered me. Yet, while the
minutes passed, I both questioned and answered my mental inquiries as to why he hadn't worked on the test during the allotted time. Easy answer. Because his buds in the gang would have been notified. Less than 10 minutes later, he jerked up from his seat. I could feel the angry heat resonating off his body as he approached. If I'd taken the bait and looked into his eyes, I'd see the dare in them. Instead, I acted as if he wasn't even in the room. I held my breath, certain he'd change his mind and ripped the frick!
He wasn't even in the room.
I held my breath, certain he'd change his mind and rip the test to shreds. He stood in front of my desk long enough I was lightheaded, finally placing the piece of paper just off to the side. With an abrupt turn, he sauntered toward the door. It makes me laugh. This dude's a fucking gangster and he's out here sauntering.
Sauntered toward the door.
When he stopped and retraced his steps, I fought the urge to turn my head toward him with everything I had. Very few things in this life could shock me any longer. I was simply immune to surprises. Or maybe the life had been sucked out of me. Yet, when he placed an apple on the desk, the tiny sound slipping past my lips was impossible to hold back. If he noticed, he didn't show it, concentrating on what he thought was his cooler-than-shit gait as he headed to the exit, walking out and slamming the door behind him. Only then did I let off a heavy breath. Eagerness replaced everything else, and I decided to grade the paper. After scanning the answers, a tiny bit of excitement tickled my senses. Unless I was losing my mind, he'd gotten every answer right. Just as I finished with the last few questions, a light knock was followed by the door being pitched open. Tawny Shepherd was not only my best friend, she was also the only reason I'd yet to pull my hair out. After taking the job on what my parents had called a childish whim, she'd taken pity on me, helping me find a quaint, albeit tiny, rental house I could call my own, at least for the time being. She was also the only person I spent any time with outside of school. The woman as crazy on the inside as I was. Only, she had no qualms in showing off her bitchy, witchy side, as she liked to call her larger-than-life personality. Scusi.
Larger-than-life personality. Larger-than-life personality. Larger-than-life personality.
While I taught English and literature, she was a math whiz, tackling the world of statistics and advanced geometry like a rock star. Her selected field of study certainly didn't match her wild appearance. Thank God the day is over with. I can do that better. She's very eccentric, though. Uno momento, por favor. Tawny. What's up, Tess? I didn't spell eccentric right. Guess who doesn't care? Me. Okay.
Wild appearance.
And we will get to the right spot. And clear throat. Become a very eccentric best friend.
Match her wild appearance.
Thank God the day's over with, she tossed out, as she shashayed. Fuck, this always fucks me up. She shashayed. Okay.
The day's over with,
she tossed out, as she shashayed in my direction. Drinks on me tonight. I was still reeling over the answers. Yes, the quiz had been based on multiple choice, so theoretically, Anthony could have taken lucky guesses. Except for the last question, the question worthy of at least a paragraph. Which he'd understood, although, let's calm down. Ooh, I'm not checking on my first layer of my 3D print. Shame on me. It's laying beautifully. Okay.
Least a paragraph.
Which he'd understood, although instead of a couple of sentences thrown together, which was what I expected to find with everyone else's paper, he'd written 3 eloquent paragraphs about his greatest loss. His father. No wonder he hadn't wanted to risk anyone seeing the words of admiration and respect appearing on the sheet. What are you looking at? And who brought the teacher an apple? I didn't know some student was sweet on you. Very funny. My worst student surprised me. Does that mean you're taking out a restraining order? Chuckling, I shut down the computer and grabbed my things. I thought about it last week at least twice, maybe 3 times. You'll learn to keep Mace in your purse. I already have it. What did he do? I shook my head, still in a small state of shock. I told him he'd never be a hockey player if he couldn't read, and honestly, I was beginning to think he couldn't. But he just aced the test. A hockey player, huh? There could be worse things. Not in my world. Oh, come on. They're sexy. Tawny grinned. You up for that drink later? I know you're not. Oh, my lips just smacked so fucking loud. Jesus Christ.
Tawny grinned. You up for that drink later? Tawny grinned.
You up for that drink later? I know you're not working at your other job. The next game isn't for a couple of nights. It's Wednesday, and I don't care if they're sexy. They're arrogant pigs. Ouch. Okay, then. No hockey players. I know it's the middle of the week, which means we have 2 more
And no hockey players.
I know it's the middle of the week, which means we have 2 more full days before we can take a breather from sarcasm and testosterone. No, silly. It's the night I go skate. Her frown was followed by a short laugh. That's right. I forgot all about the night you practice. You sure you can't
The night you practice.
You're sure you can't change your mind just once? You know what? I need to work off a little steam. The nagging for excitement picked at the back of my brain. Are you sure? I know you too well by now. You need a little hunger and hunt. I know the perfect bar. There is no perfect bar. You bet there is. She leaned in, as if fearful others would hear. We could even meet some wolfies. Wolfies? You know exactly what I mean. Shifters. I heard there were a few in town. She dropped her gaze, doing one of her cutesy little maneuvers and miming a drawing. I knew exactly what she had on her mind when she drew a huge cock and a big set of balls. Don't you have a boyfriend? I challenged. Yes, but a girl can look and fantasize. Do not tell me you haven't thought about what fucking one would be like.
King one would be like.
I threw a look toward the classroom door, thankful neither the principal nor any students had snuck into the room. Fantasizing only leads to hungering, which only leads to heartache. So that's an fuck. Why can't I say this? There we go. It took my brain a sec. I had to load the word.
Leads to heartache.
So that's an empathetic no. Party pooper. What would it hurt for you to taste one? Cocking my head, I couldn't help but glare at her. Since the little over a year,
At her.
Since the little over a year since the first reported and confirmed discovery that shifters walked among us, people had gone nuts about them. They were either terrified their entire families would be eaten in the middle of the night, or eager to hunt one down for a trophy on their walls. Then there were the groupies, mostly women who gravitated toward male shifters as if they were rock gods. From what I knew, they were notorious loners, which I certainly couldn't blame them for, given the insanity of how the press handled their existence. It was disgusting in my mind. Then there was my father, the horrible man that he was, determined to wipe their existence off the face of the earth.
Face of the earth.
And me, who'd continued to keep her head in the sand regarding the... 2 burps. Ooh, what a sweet treat.
Face of the earth. Face of the earth.
And me, who continued to keep her head in the sand regarding their existence. I had enough to worry about without werewolves combing the night. You really believe the hype about shifters? I asked. They do exist, you know, even if it seems as if they're hiding. So my father has told me every sermon... Oops, I missed a word.
Hiding.
So my father has told me in every sermon about how they don't deserve a place on this earth. I don't blame them for refusing to interact with humans. We suck. Now, you'll excuse me if I don't feel the need to mire myself in ridicule if my father found out I even talked to a shifter. Be a bad girl for once. You won't regret it. They have 2 cocks, you know. Oh my God. You bet I'd heard the insane stories on social media. There were nutcases out there. But, oops, why did I say but?
Cases out there.
They were the same people who insisted little green men walked amongst us too. While science did confirm shifters were real, I reserved judgment and, in truth, just didn't care. Now she had... Why am I so burpy right now? What is going on?
Didn't care. Didn't care.
Now she had me laughing. Oh, hold on.
Didn't care. No, didn't care.
Now she had me laughing. Oh, I'd love to see that. Like I told you the other night, men are out of my vocabulary for now. Not just because of my reprehensible acts, but also because my father continually wanted to fix me up with the right guy. Only there was no such thing. Was Mark hitting on you again? When isn't Mark hitting on me? He left me a card in my locker in the teacher's lounge, which means he broke into my locker to do so. Who the hell does that?
That.
She chuckled and folded her arms. So he's persistent. He comes from a good family, tells a mean joke, has interesting tastes in food, and doesn't drool on himself. You just described either Frankenstein or Jeffrey Dahmer's family. Did you go out with him? God, no. Then I've made my case. Blowing off steam is in everyone's best interest. You talk a mean talk, Tawny insisted. Oh no, I'm a mean little bitch when I need to be. We'll catch a drink, maybe this weekend. As long as you're not snuggling under the covers with that haughty boyfriend of yours. I certainly don't have any big plans other than working Saturday night.
Saturday night.
She was lucky. Her boyfriend, not only a hot specimen of a man, but also a good conversationalist. Plus, as a well-known sports reporter, his knowledge of hockey teams and stats legendary. He traveled extensively during the hockey season. I thought he was an ass, but I wasn't required to act like a glorified puck bunny. As soon as I'd learned the meaning of the term, I'd been disgusted. Tell me why you're working the concessions again? Don't you have enough fun being on edge while you're here? When I blinked several times, she rolled her eyes. My attempt at making a hockey joke. Ha ha, I hear them all the time. And I did. Trust me, I'm not working the arena for the money or their great food. That's for certain.
It's for certain.
Other than the fact I could use the extra cash, the real reason I worked a few shifts here and there was to gain free access to the ice where the team practiced. The TDH Iceplex in Brandon was perfect. After the team had left for the day and the Zamboni machine had gone through, the ice was in perfect condition for me to skate. I was almost always alone, the few maintenance and custodial staff left inside the building giving me space. It was the perfect arrangement, and one my father couldn't fuck with. With everything in my briefcase, we headed toward the door. Jeff is working this weekend. He wants me to come to the game, but I'm just not interested. We headed out the door, taking our time to walk down the hall. Wait a minute. You don't like a... fuck.
Oh.
Wait a minute. You don't like a bunch of big, burly, bouncing baby boys pawing all over you? Well, there is something to be said for all that testosterone in a room, you know? Hot alpha men dominating the ice. What's not to love? You mean pushing a teensy, tiny little puck around? What did that puck ever do to them? And why would any woman subject themselves to being a puck bunny? Her laugh echoed in the hallway. There are some fringe benefits to hanging all over a sweaty guy. A tiny snort left my mouth before I could stop it, an involuntary tick I couldn't stand. No, thank you. I'll stick to non-sweaty guys. You don't know what you're missing. Sometimes Jeff will slide into his old hockey uniform so I can peel it off.
Peel it off.
Enough. I don't want to hear about your fabulous love life when mine is shit. We both laughed as we headed out to our vehicles. You need to consider going out on a date every once in a while. I will, when Mother Nature makes a new crop of men. You're not going to break into song, are you? Yanking my key into my hand, I laughed. Oh, heavens no. Not unless the perfect man walks into my life, and I don't see that happening. Be careful what you ask for. Talk to you tomorrow. Enjoy your lonely skating date. I think I will. As I climbed into my car, I glanced at the ice skates and fuck!
I think I will.
Fuck.
I think I will.
As I climbed into my car, I glanced at the ice skates I'd tossed onto the front passenger floor. They were broken in, a favorite pair that I'd owned for years. Some people would be surprised how old they were, given their pristine condition. Until recently, they'd done little more than make up
Condition.
Until recently, they'd done little more than take up room in my closet. But I hadn't been able to sell or give them away, just like my father wanted. They were all I had left of the real me, the girl with stars in her eyes. Leaning over, I stroked the smooth leather, thankful I'd taken the time to keep it supple and the blades free from rust. While I'd never be the whimsical fairy figure skater from before, something a reporter had coined after a flawless performance, for an hour every week, I could pretend. And that had to be good enough to guide me through the darkness. Shit! We're fucking cooking. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to go live on Instagram. Oh, whoopsies! Is it going to let me? Maybe it doesn't matter. Oh, it's not going to let me. I guess it doesn't matter. Okay, cool. I copied the thing. I did the stuff. Guess we don't worry about it. All right. Okay. Let's rock and roll here, huh? Chapter 5. Christine. I was a simple girl who preferred simple things. Did I have an evil streak running through me? You bet I did. I'd learned it was necessary while dealing with my parents, who were real pieces of work. However, I was the cautious one, a woman who never took any chances. I rarely tempted fate and preferred living my life simply, without complications.
Without complications.
I had my little house in a cheap, albeit decent part of town. While a rental, I'd been lucky to find such a gem on short notice and for a price I could afford. In the months of living in Tampa, I'd finally begun to feel as if I was able to live my life the way I wanted, away from my treacherous family. While my parents' house was a little over 3 hours away in driving distance, it was just far enough my mother wouldn't suddenly drop in on me. Besides, I'd yet to provide my address even after 6 months. With the chuckle on my lips and a lemonade in my hand, I headed out the front door. I also lived on a cul-de-sac with only 6 other homes located on my street, which was also nice, except the freeway was way too close, bringing constant traffic noise. Which was also nice. Oops, that's fucking the wrong line.
Traffic noise. traffic noise.
But I'd learned to ignore it, enjoying the peace that being away from a crowded apartment allowed. With my little short shorts and tank top on, my hair up. Okay, voice, join me for this, huh?
Loud.
With my little short shorts and tank top on, my hair up in a bun, and wearing a sun hat and dark glasses, I was ready to tackle the heat of the afternoon. Besides, I'd freeze my butt off later when I went to the rink. At least it was something to look forward to. My music selection made, a little Spanish salsa music, I was already in a much better mood. I sat down on the front step, studying the flowers I'd stopped off at Lowe's to purchase on the way home. Flowers were my treat, both the scents and vivid colors allowing a smile no matter what kind of mood I was in. Today, I'd need a pick-me-up. Not because of school or even because my father had called not once, but twice.
Not once, but twice.
As usual, he hadn't left a message because he expected me to be Johnny on the spot returning his call. I refused. Whatever he wanted, he could either text or leave me a message like normal people did. As if my father was normal. He deemed himself a hunter these last few months, acting as if he'd taken on the hand of God in deciding what kind of creatures were allowed to walk the earth. Why was I even thinking about him? He'd driven me crazy my entire life, pushing me in directions I didn't want to go. So the quiet little girl who, up until a couple of years ago, had never pushed back, was pushing hard now. I was finished with being a pawn in anyone's game. The lemonade was refreshing, and I was thankful for the beautiful wispy clouds and blue sky.
Blue sky.
While it was humid as usual, I could almost detect an ocean breeze. Even after growing up on a house on a private beach, I still loved the ocean. After a few more sips and placing the covered bottle on the porch, I grabbed my bag of garden utensils and the flat of flowers
Of the ocean.
After a few more sips and placing the covered bottle on the porch, I grabbed my bag of garden utensils and the flat of flowers and headed to the little area I'd already painstakingly carved out next to the driveway. With a gorgeous bush as a backdrop, all that was needed were a few purple and fuchsia flowers. I had my hanging baskets and a couple of other pots full of flowers, and this would finally allow the little house to seem more like home.
More like home.
Even if it desperately needed a paint job. Maybe I could convince my
Paint job.
Maybe I could convince my landlord at some point. And maybe pigs would learn to fly too. Chuckling, I set out to plant every container, filling the area full of bright petals. For a long time, I hadn't been able to smell or touch any foliage. Too dangerous. Maybe that's why I'd spent too much money at the local big box hardware store. I had dirt all over me, but I didn't care. When I was finished, I struggled with the huge bag of mulch, getting more mulch on me than I did on the flower bed. But finally, I managed to maneuver the heavy bag. After patting everything into place, I broke into a smile. Time to get everything watered. After soaking the pretty flowers, I gathered a whiff of fresh mulch and was a happy little camper. I tossed the tools on the front porch and dragged the hose closer. Before I went inside, I'd give the other flowers some water as well. In celebration, I grabbed my lemonade, doing a little dance. Things were finally coming together. With the light breeze, I was more content than I'd been in a long time. Or at least I would be if I didn't have a phone call hanging over my head. No, I wasn't going to think about that right now. I had other things to do, including skating. something I looked forward to more than anything in the world: my freedom. As I watered the flowers in the pots, I allowed myself to enjoy the music. Sadly, my heart continued to thump. I tried humming to get my mind off everything, but soon my own voice was drowned out by a rumble. Was that thunder? Glancing at the sky. Yes!
Thunder?
Glancing at the sky, I shielded my eyes. No, there were no dark clouds. What the hell was the sound? I turned toward the street, realizing seconds later the sound was coming from a vehicle. A very loud, obnoxious vehicle. Not only a loud engine, but an even louder radio playing what sounded like 80s hair bands. Seconds later, a car careened around the corner, going a little too fast, the thumping of the deep bass matching the wild beat of the engine's rumble. The flash of black indicated a sports car, but it was tough to tell with the sun beaming down so brightly. While the driver slowed, something happened. Was he reaching for his cell phone? Don't you dare do it! A bad feeling rushed into my system. God damn, I hated when I was right. Which was most of the time.
Most of the time.
With a sudden hard jerk to the left, the driver narrowly avoided hitting two mailboxes. A jerk to the right, and I also heard the squeal of brakes a couple of seconds before a flashing blur of gold hit me in the face, and I watched in horror, a moment of cinematic slow motion kicking in when the front tires jumped the curb and rolled right over my new flowers and the beautiful flowering shrub, barely avoiding hitting my car before coming to a stop in the middle of the street. Go whoop his ass.
The street.
While accidents certainly occurred, it would appear from what I'd seen that the idiot in the driver's seat had been distracted by a phone call and had lost control, crushing the only smile of the day in the process. Man, I was pissed, livid. I was the level of enraged that meant the person on the receiving end of my fury would soon wish they'd never come to this area of town. From what I could tell, there was a man driving, only I couldn't see his face any better than he could see mine. He also wore dark shades and a baseball hat, obviously not noticing I was standing in the middle of the yard when he threw open the driver's door. As he stood, I was surprised how tall he was. I was standing on a slight knoll, but he still appeared much taller.
Much taller.
At least 6.5 feet. Damn it! Motherfucking son of a bitch! Shit! Damn! Fuck! The hearty string of curse words was accentuated by a husky voice, a deep baritone that, if I wasn't in such a bad mood, would certainly provide some sense of arousal. If I was that kind of girl. I wasn't. In fact, I was more annoyed than I'd been in a very long time. But, to my credit, I kept my mouth shut, waiting and watching as the flower killer moved toward the front of his car, crouching down to inspect if there was any damage.
Any damage.
I managed to keep my cool, curious as to how long it would take until he noticed me. He was still cursing, albeit now under his breath, furious that there was mulch embedded around his headlights. While I wasn't one to judge people all the time since I'd had enough of that while serving my time with my parents, that was the right word.
With my
Parents, that's exactly what I was doing right now. Dissecting everything about him. From his faded jeans that fit way too snugly on his sculpted butt, to the interesting t-shirt he was wearing, a garment that was at least a size too small, but provided me with the beautiful pictorial of his pectorals and muscular arms. When he finally stood, he jerked off the baseball hat, running his fingers through his hair, then shoving it back on. What I found amusing was his selection of vehicle. If my dates were right, he was driving a 1978 Trans Am, the Smokey and the Bandit edition, complete with the gold bird. Okay, so probably the coolest car he could possibly drive ever in the history of cars.
With the gold bird. With the gold bird.
I almost allowed a hint of amusement to flow alongside my anger. Only men who were interested in proving their manhood dared drive such a vehicle. Oh, fuck.
My anger.
Only men who were interested in proving their manhood dared drive such vehicles. He grumbled once more, and at that moment, my anger bristled all over again. And why? He was standing smack on one of my freshly planted flowers. I could tell he finally figured out the crime he'd just committed hadn't gone unnoticed. That's why when he straightened all the way to his full height, every muscle in his body stiffened. Very slowly, he tipped his head over his shoulder. Meanwhile, I plastered a smile on my face, reminding
shoulder.
Meanwhile, I plastered a smile on my face, remaining right where I was with the hose still in my hand, beads of water trickling from the nozzle. When he finally had the nerve to turn around, I kept the sweet smile, dropping my head in an exaggerated way since I was still wearing my sunglasses. He followed my trail, finally noticing that he'd crushed my beautiful flowers. Oops. The single word didn't bode well with me. Normally, a person might apologize profusely or even move off the spot as if stepping on a flock.
A person might didn't bode well with me.
Normally, a person might apologize profusely or even move off the spot as if stepping on flowing lava. Not this guy. Oh no. He stood staring at me, unmoving to the point the moment was unnerving. So I did what anyone would do in this set of circumstances. Instead of flying off the handle or screaming at him, I did something even better. I turned on the water full blast, aiming the stream directly at his chest. While he sucked in his breath, even throwing out his arms, he didn't budge, not even an inch. He didn't try to stop me or yell and scream about what I dared to do. He just stood there, taking it as if he deserved the punishment. There was nothing for me to do but shift the stream up and down his body until he was thoroughly soaked. When he didn't respond, maybe a small part of me felt deflated. But I wasn't going to budge until the anger had drifted down from the boiling point. When I turned the nozzle off, he finally took a deep breath. Are you finished? For now.
For now.
We stood, staring at each other, as if a line had been drawn in the sand. With the salsa music in the background, the moment seemed a little surreal. I guess I owe you an apology, he said, his voice smooth like velvet, husky enough to be considered a sexual weapon, and gruff enough that for a split second, my mind went to a couple of very filthy places where his hot breath was skimming across my naked skin.
Naked skin.
What was wrong with me? The asshole had careened down the street and almost caused a horrific accident. Yet, he was reacting as if what had occurred was no big deal. Maybe I should be grateful he'd accepted his punishment. Yep, you do. He acted as if he was going to keep it to himself until I raised the nozzle again, lifting my eyebrows as I did. Eager for round two? He threw up his hands. Tough lady. You have no idea. Out with it. Then I'm sorry. Good enough? Ask my flowers since they're screaming in pain. Flowers don't feel pain. And how do you know that? I had to admit, fucking with him was delightful. While he started to answer right away, he backed off, his expression one of consternation. Well, Al, you're right. I don't. That took the wind out of my sails. You weren't paying attention to where you were going. You could have killed me, or yourself. Instead, you destroyed property. What in the hell are you doing here anyway? This is a private street.
Private street.
I was paying attention, he insisted, yanking off his sunglasses and wiping water from his face. I guess he didn't want to be recognized because when he did, he turned away from me, shoving the shades back onto his face as quickly as he'd removed them. Oh, you were, huh? Yeah, a cat ran out in front of me. His insistence was almost hysterical. He even threw his arms around toward the road as if the kitty cat would be standing there flipping him off as he or she meowed. Funny, I don't see a kitty. Maybe my bratty side was just continuing from earlier in the day, which was why I didn't stop myself when I acted as if I had claws, swiping the air and hissing like a cat. I thought it was there. I didn't want to run it over. So you don't mind running me over instead? Well, given the way you responded with the lethal weapon in your hand, maybe I should have.
Yeah, I should have.
I'd be damned if he didn't grin. The man was as infuriating as his scent was intoxicating. Why in the world did I find this dangerous stranger so attractive? Well, maybe he was only dangerous to my flowers, but still. This little thing? I asked, peppering him with a spray of water once again. This time, he tried to protect himself, ducking but unable to miss my direct aim. Stop it! Just stop it! I'm sorry, okay? I didn't mean to crush your tiny flowers. Tiny? That was enough to goad my anger all over again, but I snapped off the nozzle. The asshole was now trying to get under my skin, and I sensed he was enjoying the hell out of himself. I'll show you, tiny buddy. Get off my flowers.
Flowers.
He took a decided step, and given the puddle of mud he was now standing in, he slipped. I watched in amusement as he twisted and turned, pitching forward and backward until falling with a brutal thud on his ass. Unable to help myself, I burst into laughter. Sometime later, I might tell myself that laughing at his predicament wasn't the nice thing to do, but at the moment, laughter just came easily. So much so, I wasn't paying any attention to the fact he'd managed to struggle to his feet and in 2 long strides was stranding fuck.
Just came easily.
So much so, I wasn't paying any attention to the fact he'd managed to struggle to his feet and in 2 long strides was standing right in front of me. Before I even had time to gasp, he had one hand on the hose, yanking me off my feet by wrapping his other arm around me. What are you doing? My shrill cry was still full of amusement as he wrestled with me, trying his best to jerk the hose from my hand. His laugh was dark and evil.
From my hand.
His laugh was dark. Fuck.
From my hand.
His laugh was as dark and evil as the deed he was attempting. To return the favor in soaking me. I could feel that in my bones. Water went everywhere, the nozzle on full blast. He laughed. I groaned. He snorted. I hissed. His sunglasses flew off before mine, but I wasn't given a decent look at his face. Not that it mattered. I was too busy trying to best him in our aggressive competition. I might be a drowned rat, but he was a weasel. The scruff on his face a direct correlation. While I might not look it given what some called me
Direct correlation.
While I might not look it given what some called my frailty, I'd always been competitive, and ice skating had just been the tip of the iceberg. No pun intended, of course. I fought him with everything I had, managing to pitch him back by several feet. We stood, staring at each other like prize fighters, finally circling each other. The grin on his face was one I wanted to wipe off. Maybe I would. "No, you think you're a tough girl, huh?" he asked, daring to beckon me with his hand. His hair was in his face, hiding his handsome features. Maybe that was a good thing, since my nipples were already aching. Totally inappropriate.
Appropriate.
I raked my hand through my wet hair, giving him a death stare. "I am, but you can come to me." I shifted back and forth, and from foot to foot, laughing provocatively as I did. "You don't have the guts to come after me." What the hell? Not only was I enjoying myself, but I was also furious that he continued to act as if I was in the right. So I blew him a kiss. And what did the man do? He lunged for me, his dark, deep, and husky laugh sending a shower of electrified tingles all the way to my toes. Hell yeah. All right, we're going to call it there. If anybody's still remaining, I appreciate you.